Hi there, welcome back to my Crochet and Mindfulness series. Today we're going to go over some basic introduction stitches. And as we do so, I want to remind you that we're approaching this learning experience with an attitude of mindfulness and curiosity. So before we get going, I encourage you to check in with yourself and scan your body, starting with your feet, wiggle your toes, roll your ankles a little bit. Check in with your calves and thighs, belly, shoulders, arms, and face. Wiggle your jaw. Loosen any tension in your forehead. Take a deep breath. And notice any emotions that you're aware of in your body or in your experience in general. Anytime we learn something new, there are a whole host of emotions that come with that. Sometimes frustration, sometimes confusion. And the nice thing about learning something new is that it gives us a chance to create those emotions in a safe place and learn about how we react to them. So as we are all in this time of uncertainty, with no clear direction in front of us, this type of activity can help you learn about what you are like when you feel uncertain, what you are like when you feel confused. So think about anything that comes up during this experience as a useful way to be curious about yourself. So we're going to start the lesson by creating a slip knot. So a slip knot is basically a loose loop that allows you to start our chain foundation. So there are a couple of different ways that you can do a slip knot. You can create a loop and then take your non-dominant hand, your dominant hand, so in my case, my right hand, I'm going to go behind this loop and pull through the tail end on the other side. I'm not sure if you can see me. Give me just a second. Get a little bit more room there. So let's try that again. So you would create a circle and hold that in your non-dominant hand, in my case my left hand, and take your dominant hand from behind the circle, put your thumb and forefinger through, and pull the tail end of the yarn that is still attached to the ball through. So that is a slip knot. And you can see if you put your hook in there, you can move the knot by pulling on different ends of the tail, so you can make it bigger or smaller. So we're going to have kind of a nice loose slip knot on our hook to start our basic chains. So what you're going to want to do is, using your middle finger and thumb, kind of hold the knot, the slip knot that you've made, sort of steady to give you some stability. So not your index finger and thumb, because you're going to need your index finger to hold the yarn. So your middle finger and thumb. And to do a chain, you're going to start with a yarn over. So you're going to take your hook, you're going to pass it over the top of your yarn, and then go around and under it. So that's a yarn over. To pull up a loop, you always start with a yarn over, and then you pull that yarn over through the loop that's on your hook. So this is the loop on our hook. This is the yarn over. So to start that, you're going to kind of twist your hook and then pull it towards you. And as you do so, you're going to pull it through the loop that was already on your hook. And you've now just made your first chain stitch. The chain stitch is the foundation stitch to everything that you do when you're working in rows usually. So anytime you want to make like a square or a rectangle, as though maybe we're going to make a really long rectangle, which would be what, like a scarf. You would work in rows. If you were working in circles, that's called working in the round. But we're going to start by teaching you the basic stitches by working in rows. So we've just created our first chain. Let's do another chain. So we're going to yarn over. I'm going to turn my hook slightly and pull it towards me. And this is called drawing up a loop also. So you're going to use that same chaining motion in future patterns when you're drawing up a loop. So we've just chained 2. Let's do a couple of these just so you can kind of get used to the motion. So this is how I normally like to hold my yarn. So I'll have the piece that I'm working in between my middle finger and thumb, and the yarn itself over my index finger, kind of between my index finger and middle finger. Holding that yarn that way allows me to use my index finger to control the tension of the yarn. So in a lot of other videos, they'll talk about tension as kind of the most important thing to get the shape that you want, and I think that's probably true. I don't have the understanding myself to talk about tension or the technical understanding, but I do know that it came to me sort of naturally as I practiced this. So as you get a rhythm yourself, I expect that you'll start to understand how tense you want this line to be. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 chains. I'm going to go ahead and chain to about 10, and then I'll stop and show you how to count your stitches. So you practice this as I am. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We've got about 12 chains so far. I remember when I was learning to crochet, I had a really hard time understanding what it was that I was looking at. So I'm going to try and point that out to you here as we move through this. So your first stitch is here. So here's our slip knot that we created, and here's the first stitch. This V shape is going to become really familiar to you as we move throughout. This is going to be what the top of all of your stitches look like, whether it's a chain stitch like this, or a single crochet or a double crochet, and I'll show you those as we move through. But the V shape right here is what the top of all of your stitches will look like. So for instance, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, 4, 5, and so on. So let's chain to about 15 just to give us a little bit of space to work with. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The loop that's on your hook does not count as a stitch. So it's this one right here is the last one. All right, so take a second to, again, observe any emotions that are coming up for you. Does this seem like this is making sense? Am I moving too fast? Am I moving too slow? Just observe your urges and your reactions to this process. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come up and we're going to work this way, and then we're going to come up and we're going to go this way, up and this way, and that's how you work in the row, kind of back and forth in that way. So that's our chain. Before we move on to the single crochet, I'm actually just going to snip that for you. So that we can compare the different stitches as we move through. So I'm just going to snip that here. I'm going to scoot it up here, kind of in our line of view, but not in the way. So let's do that again. Let's start from the beginning. We're going to create a slip knot, so start with your circle. You can kind of fold it over if you want, if that's easier for you. And then grab the yarn that's still connected to the ball and pull it through that circle. there's your slip knot. Take your hook, put it in the slip knot and tighten it around your hook. Oops, pulled out the wrong tip thread there. So you've got a little bit of movement there. That's how you know it's not too tight. If I pull it real tight, it's not gonna give near as easy. I want to loosen that up a little bit. So just enough to kind of see through to the table there. Okay, so I'm gonna hold the slip knot between my middle finger and thumb, and I'm gonna prepare to chain. So I'm gonna yarn over, turn my hook, and pull it through. I've just chained one. Yarn over, turn my hook and pull it through that loop. I've just chained two. Remember, when you start with one loop on the hook, it's often a chain. Right? So yarn over, pull through. And as you practice this, you may find yourself building up some speed. That's great. Don't go too fast or you'll probably get yourself frustrated, but being able to move a little bit more smoothly is definitely a good sign. So let's count where we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I need 3 more. Okay, so we're gonna start the single crochet now. Anytime you're going to start a row of single crochets, you always start with well, you don't always, but in basic crochet, you'll start with a foundation row of chains like this. But we're gonna add to that by adding single crochets in the next row. So because we want this to be a nice clean rectangular edge, we need to add a chain. The chain is gonna allow us to like curve upwards and move in that direction cleanly. Sorry, I bumped into the camera there. You'll see what I mean as we go. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. The first there, this is the loop that's on our hook, that's the chain. This is the first single crochet. The second, or the first chain, excuse me, and then the second chain from the hook is where we're gonna go. So you'll notice I use my thumb here to kind of stabilize this yarn, to make it kind of go where I want it to go. So I'll pull it back just a little bit, and I'm gonna insert my hook into the middle of the V shape here. So insert my hook there, and I'm gonna yarn over, twist my hook, pull it through to pull up a loop. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to use my index finger here to pull on it and kind of tighten it up a little bit. And you see I have to wiggle it a little bit because I want both of these to tighten up a little bit. So we've done that. I'm going to yarn over, twist my hook, and pull it through both loops. And you've just made your first single crochet. So let's do 2 or 3 of those, and then I can show you how they start to look as you work through. So again, we're gonna use our thumb here to kind of stabilize our yarn. We're gonna take our hook and insert it into the middle of the next chain. So that's that V shape right there. Okay, now yarn over, twist your hook and pull it through. You've pulled up a loop, and now you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. You've just made your second single crochet. Again, insert your hook into the middle of the V, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both of those. Okay, let's do a few more. So take our hook, insert it into the middle of the V, yarn over, pull a loop through the middle of that chain stitch, yarn over, twist your hook just a little, and pull it through both loops. Okay, now we have 4 single crochets. So let me show you what those look like. on the top, you can see this is a single crochet, this is a single crochet, this is one, and this is one. This is the loop that would have been on our hook, so we don't count that. And you can see that the top of these single crochets looks a lot like this row of chains that we made earlier. The difference is the side. So if you turn these chains to the side, there's no side, right? It's just the chain. If you turn the single crochet to the side, you've got some, I'm going to call it volume here. And so here's our yarn that we're working with. These are the chains that we're doing for the foundation. But here are the single crochets. And you can see that there's kind of a post here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's what the side of the single crochet looks like. So let's finish these single crochets all the way to the end of this row. Insert our hook into the next chain, draw up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both. I'm going to move this all the way to the end of the row, and you crochet along. If you need to pause the video and go slower than I'm going, please take all the time that you need. As we learn a new skill and build mastery, we have to move through the process. For most of us, it doesn't come easily or immediately. So just again, observe your reaction. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you frustrated? Are you confused? Notice what you're experiencing and just be curious about that. What does that tell you about how you tend to react to frustration or newness in general? Okay. So we've come to the last chain in our foundation. I'm going to insert my hook there, draw up a loop. When I have 2 loops on my hook, I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Now, again, we want to go up this way and over and up and over. So to get the up part of it, we need to chain 1 again. So we're going to flip our work. So I'm right-handed, so it's going to go this way for me. And I need to chain 1. Remember to chain, you just yarn over and pull it through. Now, this part is going to be a little trickier for you because we've flipped our work over. And so the back side looks a little bit different from the front side. You can see those posts a lot more clearly on the front side, right? Like here's your top loop and your post, and there's your bottom there. Not quite as clear on the back. Nonetheless, you can always kind of go to the top to give you a guide. So on these V's, right, this is going to be called the front loop. The side that's facing you is the front loop, and the side that's facing away from you is called the back loop. So front loop, back loop. You always insert your hook underneath the front loop and go straight through till it comes out the back loop. So on this side, that's really pretty straightforward, right? So here's the front side, front loop, post, it just goes right there. Like it's really a lot easier to tell. But on the back side, it takes a little bit of practice to kind of know what you're looking at. So again, I use the top as my guide. So here's the front loop, and I know my hook has to go under that. So front loop, turn it just slightly so I can see the side and know that my hook goes right there under that. And there's actually a nice little, oh goodness, I don't know if you can hear my dogs going crazy. But there's a nice little hole there that's where it's supposed to go. Once you've done this a while, you'll be able to feel kind of the rhythm of that. Okay, so we've chained 1, And we need to single crochet into the second stitch from our hook. So there's the first one right there, and there's the second one. Okay, so front loop, and my hook goes under the front loop all the way through to under the back loop. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both loops. And do it again. Pull up a loop, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through. If you're not sure where your hook should go, you can kind of pull at the work, and you should be able to see like a little hole. So if I pull here, I can see that there's a hole underneath the front loop. That's where my hook should go. Okay, so we're going to take our hook, insert it under the front loop, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. So let's slowly work our way to the end of this row with practicing some single crochets. Taking your time, getting a feel for the fluid movement, the repetitive movement. Right now, one single stitch probably feels like a lot of work to you. So you have to kind of think about, okay, I insert my hook here into this place, that's step 1, then I yarn over, that's step 2, then I pull through, that's step 3, then I yarn over again, then I pull through both loops, that's step 4. So 4 steps to making one single crochet. But I promise you, as you practice this, it will start to feel like one fluid movement. Right, like more like that. Okay, so we insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops. The tricky thing is when you get to the end of the row to know when you've made it to the end. And so this is where, one, counting is really important. So being able to count your stitches. Again, we don't count this little nub here because that's our chain. And then we start counting the front loops. That'll help you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So when we look at this really closely, we can see that the 15th stitch is here and that this was the chain. So we've got to put our hook in under that front loop to finish off this row. So I'll insert my hook there, pull through the loop, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. All right, so you can see the front side of this row and the front side of the previous row. So the thing with single crochets, well, with really any of them, is that the front depends on the row that you've just worked. There's the front of the project, so this might be the front of the project, but I'm talking about the front of the row. So because we're working in rows, we go this way, that will be the front, and then when we go this way, it'll be the back. Just took a moment to pause and be curious about what it is that my neighbor is doing right outside my window here. Okay, so let's do a couple more rows of single crochets. Remember, I need to chain 1 to start my row, And then I'm going to insert my hook into the second stitch from my hook, which is here where that nice kind of a large hole is waiting for me. I'm going to pull up a loop. When I have 2 loops on my hook, I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So take a moment to practice this stitch all the way down the row. I hope you're able to see this. This is the second time I've recorded this video. The first time I didn't have my phone oriented the right way, and you couldn't see my hands in the video. So as you are learning a new fiber art, I am learning the digital art of recording. That is new for me. And I am just observing the excitement that comes with that, as well as the frustration of, for instance, having to do this all over again. We all want it to kind of work out beautifully on the first try, and that's just not how it works. Okay, so because I have a practice eye, I can kind of see. I'm going to tighten this out a little bit, just a second. Okay, so because I have a practiced eye, I can kind of see that I'm at the last stitch in this row. When I was first starting though, I used to always mess up and try and put a stitch in the chain space as well. So I would put this stitch here, which would be 15, but then I'd be like, is this not one right here? Right there where I've just kind of pulled that. No, that's the chain that we made, and that gives us a nice clean edge. But you do not want to stitch there, because if you do, you're essentially adding an extra stitch to the row. So then you'd have 16 stitches in a row and not 15. So this is kind of funny now that I've pulled on that. Let me see if I can stretch it back into place there. There we go. All right, so I'm going to insert my hook into the last stitch in the row, pull up a loop, use my index finger here to tighten my tension to pull it towards, or away from me rather, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through both loops. So we've got a nice little swatch coming along here. Let's do one more row, because I'd like to have 4 single crochets to compare to the 2 rows of double crochets. And again, I want you to be able to see the back side again, because that one's a little bit harder to know what you're looking at. So again, you're inserting your hook underneath the what am I trying to say? The front loop here. I had to look at it to figure out what I was trying to say. It's getting late, children. Okay. My favorite chef always says that, children, in his tutorials. So I guess I'm just going to adopt that. Okay, children, here we go. We're going to insert our hook again into the second stitch from our hook. That's how we always start off a new row. So of single crochets, to be clear. So insert our hook into the second stitch from our hook and pull up a loop. When we have 2 loops on our hook, we yarn over, twist our hook just a little, and pull it through both of those loops. Okay, so let's do this all the way across the row. Another experience of living in quarantine is not knowing what to expect and having a hard time knowing what to do with what's in front of us. And I think that's similar to learning a new skill as well. Just kind of not knowing what's in front of us and having a hard time deciding how to respond to that. And I like practicing a new skill like this because it reminds me of what it's like. And again, it helps me kind of be curious about my experiences and pay attention to myself as I pay attention, if that makes any sense. So, for instance, as I feel frustrated, I'm able to ask myself, what is it that I'm feeling frustrated about? And like, where does that come from? What do I want to do with that? What urges come with that? So first notice that I feel frustrated, but then be curious about what I'm feeling frustrated about. Okay, so we've come to the last stitch in our row. We're going to insert our hook right here. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops. To cut our yarn to be done, what you're going to want to do is yarn over one more time and pull through. That's just to kind of secure it. Give yourself a little bit of room here and snip it. And then take the yarn that's still attached to your ball of yarn and just pull that out of there. Okay, so we've got our chain swatch that we made earlier. And now we've got 4 rows of single crochet with nice square edges. And we get that, remember, from doing that one chain at the end of each row. Okay. All right, children, now let's introduce the double crochet. So I'm going to move our swatches just up here, kind of out of the way. We're going to create another slip knot and another row of chains to get us started. So I'll just fold that over, grab a hold of the yarn that's still attached to the ball and pull it through that loop that we just made. Oops, I think I moved my hand outside of the video. So we can just pull and that will undo the slip knot. Okay, let me make sure my hands are in your view. I don't want to have to do this a third time. So we're going to make a circle. And then I'm going to bring my thumb and index finger behind the circle, through the circle, kind of here like this. And I'm going to fold it over and grab the tail end of the yarn that's still attached to the ball, and I'm going to pull that through. And then I just pull to tighten. So I'm going to insert my hook into the loop we just made, and then I'm going to pull the tail end of the yarn to tighten it around. Oops, sorry, the tail that's still attached to the ball, not the loose tail here. By the way, if you're wondering why my fingernails are weirdly colored, it's because I was making cookies yesterday and I got food coloring all underneath my fingernails. So it's not the blood of my enemies or anything like that. All right, so again, I'm gonna use my middle finger and thumb to hold the slip knot as we make our foundation of chains. So we're gonna yarn over, twist our hook, and pull it through the loop. Chain 1. Yarn over, twist our hook, and pull it through the loop. Chain 2. Yarn over, twist the hook, pull it through the loop. Chain 3. Boy, I tell you what, if you're not an expert at chaining by the end of this video, I don't know what to tell you, right? Because we've done the chains like 4 times now, right? Yarn over, pull it through. Yarn over, twist your hook, pull it through. Yarn over, twist your hook, pull it through. And again, I'm making these pretty loose, so they got a lot of wiggle room here. That helps you to be able to kind of see the spaces in between the stitches, just for learning purposes. Yarn over, twist your hook, pull it through. And see it on this one if you can get some fluid movements going. All right, so let's count and see where we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we need 2 more. Yarn over, twist and pull, yarn over, twist and pull. Okay, so we've laid our foundation of 15 chains, and we're going to learn to do the double crochet now. So to do that, we're going to chain 2. So remember, when we're going in this direction, we want the work to grow in this direction, and we want the edges to be straight. We need to do a chain at the end of each row. For the single crochets, we just chained 1 because it was a single crochet. For the double crochets, we're going to chain 2 because it's a double crochet, and it just gives us the length that we want to go in that upward direction. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my work. I'm going to hold the chains like I would have held the slip knot, so in between my middle finger and thumb. I'm going to chain 2 to get myself started, and then instead of crocheting into the second stitch from my hook, I'm going to crochet into the third stitch from my hook. So there's 1 and there's 2. Here's the third one, and that's where my hook will go. But before I do that, I need to yarn over, because a double crochet always begins with 2 loops on our hook. Ultimately, when we get ready to finish the stitch, we'll have 3 loops on our hook. So start by creating an extra loop before you insert your hook. Okay, so we've yarned over, and then we're going to take our hook and insert it into that third stitch from the hook. So I've inserted our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull that loop through. Now you have, give it a wiggle, now you have 3 loops on your hook. That's how you start the double crochet. So you're going to yarn over and go real slow on this the first time, twist your hook, and pull through just the first 2 loops. And then you have 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to yarn over again, twist your hook, and pull it through the last 2 loops. So let's do that again. Yarn over to start, insert our hook into the next stitch from where we were working, draw up a loop. Now that we have 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through just the first 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops. I'm going to do that one more time before I can kind of show you how that's starting to shape into some stitches. Okay, so let's lay it down. And you can see here, this curve on the end, that's our chain 3. Now, as we work a few more rows, that will start to straighten out into a little bit more of a neat square. But here's our first double crochet, our second double crochet, and our third double crochet. If I turn it this way, you can see the top looks just like it did for the single crochets or the row of chains that we worked before. But the side looks like a little bit of a longer post. All right, so let's practice these double crochets all the way down this chain foundation that we laid. So yarn over, insert our hook into the next chain, pull up a loop, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, turn our hook slightly, pull it through the first 2 loops, and then do that again, yarn over and pull it through the second 2 loops. Okay, so you're starting to see it take shape. Let's do that all the way down and go as slow as you need to, and observe your reactions to all of your questions. You may be saying to yourself, oh my God, she's going too fast. You may be saying to yourself, what in the heck is she pointing to? You may be saying to yourself, where does the needle go? Or what step am I on? And all of those are really normal reactions. The concept of muscle memory is, quite frankly, a problematic scientific concept. It would be more accurate to describe most of what people call muscle memory as a habit. But it will start to feel like a really familiar set of movements. So if you want to call it muscle memory, then go ahead. This type of repetitive movement helps us to distract from ruminating thoughts. So instead of following a particular train of thought, maybe just notice it and then kind of come back to what I'm doing. This is the type of thing that's really hard to do and to think about anxious, distracting thoughts. Okay, so again, we've come to the last chain. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook there, pull up a loop, and now that there are 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, turn our hook slightly, pull it through the first 2 loops, yarn over, and pull it through the second 2 loops. And we've got our first row of double crochets. So we're going to flip our work, and again you can see it looks different on the back than on the front. On the front side you can see those posts quite a bit more clearly, and then on the back it's a little more jumbled. So to find your way, you can always go to the top, find your front loop and your back loop, and know that your needle will go under the front loop there, all the way across the row. So we're going to start by chaining 2, because again, 2 chains is about the length of 1 double crochet. So essentially we need to create just enough space that's about the length of the stitch that we're making. So if you were going to do what's called a treble crochet, which would be like starting with 2 loops on your, actually 3 loops on your hook, then you might chain 3 to begin. But we're just doing a double, so we're going to chain 2. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to insert our hook into the 3rd stitch from the hook. So 1, 2, and 3. So yarn over to start, insert our hook under the front loop of that 3rd stitch, and pull up a loop. Now I've got 3 loops on my hook, so I'm going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, and yarn over, and pull through the second 2. Let's do that again. Yarn over, insert our hook under the front loop all the way through the back loop, pull up a loop. Now that I have 3 loops on my hook, I'm going to yarn over, twist my hook a little, pull it through the first 2 loops, yarn over, twist my hook again, and pull it through the second 2 loops. And we're just going to slowly make our way to the end of the row. Notice your breath as you do this. Sometimes when we're concentrating, we have a tendency to hold our breath. But for this to really help improve your mood and reduce your stress, you want to breathe very deeply and very smoothly. So try and make your exhale longer than your inhale. I'm trying to make sure you can see my hands here, my limited video capacity. And again, be aware of any tension you're holding in your body. Try and give it a wiggle and loosen any tension that you may be having. Okay, and so again, this is the part where you might be saying to yourself, oh, which is the last stitch? Again, this one is the chain, and this one is the stitch that we're going to crochet into. If you want more precise information to describe the difference in these two, I'm not really sure what to tell you other than counting, because if you turn it this way, you know, you're going to see a V here, which is the actual last stitch, but you're also going to see a tiny little V here, which is that chain, because again, they all look the same on the top. So if you are confused, just best to count. So remember, this first one here is the chain, so that doesn't count. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So then you know you just have one left. Yarn over, insert your hook here, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first two, and yarn over and pull through the second two. So we've just completed our swatch of 2 rows of double crochets. So I'm gonna pull this loop through just to kind of secure it, snip the end, pull the tail that's attached to the ball of yarn out of there. Okay, so look, your 2 rows of double crochet are roughly equal to your 4 rows of single crochet. And that should mathematically make a little bit of sense. I'm not great at math, but I know that 2 is double 1, so you got 4 here. It makes sense that you'd have 2 here. And then there's your row of chains. So you've done the chain row 3 times now. You've introduced the single crochets and the double crochets. The next step is to learn to combine all of these things to make your relevant patterns. So if you can do the chain stitch, the single crochet, and the double crochet, you can do so many patterns out there. You can make scarves, hats, sweaters, blankets. You can make so much with just those 3 basic stitches. Now there are other stitches out there. The half double crochet is a really common one. I don't know why it's named something so obscure, but that's it. There's also the treble crochet. There's a front post double crochet, a back post double crochet, and then there are certain clusters like a bobble, things like that. But these are your basic stitches, and if you can master these, you're pretty well off to the races. So now let's combine some of these stitches to see how you can make different shapes in your patterns. Okay, so here we are again. We're gonna start with another slip stitch. So I'm gonna make a loop, put my my thumb and my index finger through the loop, come back here and grab the tail end of the yarn that's still attached to the ball and pull that through the loop to tighten. Okay, put my hook into the loop we just made, grab the tail end of the yarn that's still attached to the ball and pull. Give myself a little bit of wiggle room there on my hook, and I'm going to chain 15. So yarn over, pull through 15 times. You should be getting pretty good at it by now. Maybe not this fast, but you're definitely able to do a chain by now. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 2 more, 14 and 15. Okay, so let's lay some single crochets just across the top of this just to get moving. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook by drawing up a loop and pulling through both of those. So again, single crochet, insert our hook into the next stitch, drop a loop, then yarn over and pull through both of those loops. Insert our hook into the next chain, drop a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, twist our hook a little and pull it through both of those loops. Let's do that all the way here to the end. Hope you can see my hands this time. Okay, so we've reached the last chain. Pull up a loop, turn over and pull through both loops. I'm going to chain one and flip my work as I prepare to single crochet further along the same swatch that we're making. And remember, when you're on the back side of the work, it's sometimes a little bit harder to know where to put your where to put your hook. So you can always kind of stretch it a little bit if you need to figure out where it is that your hook goes. So there's the hole that is created right under the front loop. So that's where my hook goes. Draw up a loop, yarn over. Okay, so I want to show you how to do an increase now. An increase is what happens when you put 2 stitches into the same space. Sometimes they'll call that 2 together. So they might say 2 single crochet together or 2 double crochet together on a pattern. And sometimes they'll just say increase. So I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it. Again, kind of stretch it out if I'm not sure where. There's that space right there under the front loop. Insert my hook, draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. That's a single crochet. Now to do 2 single crochets in the same space, I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to put it right back into that same space that we just did that single crochet in. So not the next one over like we normally would, but back into the same one that we just did. Insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through. Now if we flip back to the side that would be easier to see where the posts are, well, yeah, you can kind of see here's the first one and here's the second one in that little space. I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay, so we're gonna do a couple more single crochets. Actually, we'll just single crochet all the way to the end of this row. Since we've just done an increase, in other words, we put 2 single crochets in the same space, we're going to have 16 single crochets in this row instead of 15 because we just added one. So I hope that makes sense. Now we're getting to the end of our row. And here's our last space. And we can count to make sure that we're at 16. We know we should be because we started with 15 and we added 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. All right. So we're going to flip our work. Actually, it's probably easier to chain 1 and then flip your work. So chain 1, then flip your work. That just gives you a little more wiggle room so it's not as tight over there. So let's do that again. We're going to chain 1, insert our hook into the second stitch from our hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. So I'm going to increase again by putting 2 single crochets into that same space. And now, instead of having 17, or excuse me, instead of having 16, we should have 17. And again, feel free to pause the video if you need to, if you're not working quite this fast. If you're working faster than me, then kudos to you. Maybe you don't need a beginner's video. Maybe you should move on and try some of my other videos. Okay, last stitch in the row. Let's count to see how many we've got. So again, this little bit here is just the chain, so that doesn't count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So we successfully increased. Okay, so let's do some double crochets. So we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to flip our work. So chain 2, I'm going to yarn over to do a double crochet. I'm going to insert my hook into the 3rd stitch from the hook. That's how we start the row of double crochets. Okay, remember, so yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, twist our hook, pull it through the first 2, yarn over, twist our hook, and pull it through the second 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an increase with our double crochets. So first double crochet into the 1 space, then I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook back into that same space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, and pull through the second 2. And that's a little bit easier to see, I feel like, than the single crochet. As you can see that there's 2 of them there in that same space. So I'm going to go to about a quarter of the way to the end of this row, just doing some double crochets, just like we practiced. Okay, and here you can see I kind of made a mistake. My hook went through halfway through the yarn fibers there, so I just kind of carefully pull that out and start that one over. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, make sure it goes through both sides there, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then yarn over and pull through the second 2. Ooh. Work all the way to the end of this row. Well, till about a quarter of the way to the end of this row. And then I'm going to do another increase. So let's go ahead and do that here. So insert our hook, do a double crochet, and do it again in that same spot. You should be able to see there 2 double crochets in that same spot. And we'll go to the end of that row. Notice any frustration, and notice the urges that you have that come with frustration. Let's see what we've got here. Sort of a fan-like shape, right? So we've got nice clean edges because we've been doing our chains appropriately on the end of the row, but because we're increasing, it's starting to curve. So let me show you what it would be like to do some combination stitches here. So I'm going to chain 2. Now I'm just going to chain 1 and then flip my work because I'm going to start with some single crochets. So I'm chained 1, and I'm going to take my hook and insert it into the 2nd stitch from my hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both. So do a couple of single crochets here. About a quarter of the way from this edge, I'm going to show you how to combine the stitches to make some different shapes. So let's say we're going to start with a single crochet in this space right here. Pretty straightforward. Now what we want to do is put about 5 stitches in this same space to make kind of a fan or a curve. So I've started with a single crochet, and now I'm going to chain 1, and that's going to put a little bit of space between this first single crochet and the next single crochet, so or the next stitch, whatever that may be, so that when you put a whole bunch of stitches in the same space, they don't buckle. So that gives you just a little bit of space. Wow, it just started raining real suddenly. I wasn't ready for that. Okay, so anyway, so we just chained. We're going to yarn over and do a double crochet now. So insert our hook into that same space, 3 loops on our hook, pull through the first 2, pull through the second 2. Okay, so let's chain again, because I want to put, again, space between each of these stitches, because I want it to be kind of big. So I'm going to yarn over and do another double crochet into that same space. And then I'm going to chain again and just do a single crochet. And what that has done has given us a little bit of a half circle or a fan there. So let's keep going. Let's do some more single crochets. So insert our hook again under the front loop, draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through both. Let's do that for about 4 more stitches, or 4 stitches total maybe. Now let's make another one of those fans. So insert our hook underneath the front loop, so right there, pull up a loop. When there are 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through. We're going to do another chain. So yarn over, insert our hook back into that same space, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, twist your hook and pull it through the first 2, yarn over and twist your hook, pull it through the second 2. There's your double crochet. So now let's chain again and do another double crochet, again all in the same space when we're making this decorative little fan here. So then I'm going to chain and finish it with a single crochet. All right, so I'm going to keep doing some single crochets across the row. Give us a little space here. All right, let's do one more of those little fans. So we're going to insert our hook under the front loop and do a single crochet, and do a chain to put space between the single crochet and the double crochet. So yarn over and then insert our hook back into that same space, yarn over and pull through the first 2, yarn over and pull through the second 2, do another chain to put space between the 2 double crochets that we're doing here, one more chain, and then one more single crochet in that same space we've been working in, and then just single crochet here to the end. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over and pull through and just get ready to snip the yarn at the end of the work. And I'm going to take the tail that's still attached to the ball of yarn and pull that out of there. Just kind of stand back and look at the progress of our work. So this really is just sort of a free-form piece of crochet. It's not meant to be any particular pattern. Kind of looks like a crown. I don't know if we turned it into a circle. Make a little crown for your Chihuahua dog, perhaps. Sewed these edges together on the back, and voila, your little dog has a crown. I don't know. Anyway, so let's put all of these pieces together and kind of notice all the progress that we've made in this little hour that we've spent together. So we learned how to do a chain, we learned how to do rows of single crochets, rows of double crochets, we learned how to increase stitches to make more stitches, which in this case curved the row. We also learned how to combine the stitches to make different shapes in our patterns. So we've really made a whole lot of progress in one sitting. So take a second and kind of look back over that and just, you know, marvel at what it's like to learn a new skill. take a second and notice if you're feeling any particular emotions like inspiration. Notice if you're feeling more focused or more excited or pleased with yourself. Notice the ebb and flow of frustration that you felt as you were learning the new stitches. And take a second and rate your stress on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being low and 10 being high. And if you compare that to your stress at the beginning of this exercise, how does it compare? Let me know how this is going for you in the comments, or shoot me an email if you have any questions. I'd love to try and help clarify, both in terms of learning the skill of crochet, but also in terms of using crochet to facilitate a mindful experience. So again, be proud of yourself. Notice the emotions that come up and notice how you respond to those emotions, and keep going anyway.